First, let me thank you for the opportunity to present to you today our newest publication, The Journeys of Johann Martin Boltzius, Bilingual Compilation of the Diaries from 1746, 1757, 1759 and 1763. It is an honor to do so during this year of celebration, marking not only the 100th anniversary of the Georgia Salzburger Society, but also the 260th anniversary of Johann Martin Boltzius' death, which served as an impetus for this new edition. Let me begin with a personal note. The story of the Salzburg emigrants has accompanied me throughout my entire professional life as an archivist at the Francke Foundations in Halle, a path I would have never anticipated. My very first major project under the leadership of then head of the archives Thomas Müller-Balke, the later director of the Francke Foundations, was the cataloguing of the so-called Georgia collection. Thanks to the support of the Georgia Salzburger Society, particularly its former president Vince Exley, this effort led to the creation of a bilingual guidebook titled Salzburg, Halle, North America, published in 1999. That guidebook did more than organize archival records. It told the story of the Salzburgers' forced migration to East Prussia and to America in chronologically arranged summaries of original documents. It became, in a sense, a readable history book. And for me, it opened up an entirely new world. Reading the letters of the American pastors gave vivid insight into what is truly meant to lose one's homeland and be resettled in a foreign land under unfamiliar rule. These events, which might seem remote or poorly historical, gained unsettling immediacy when, nearly 300 years later, Europe witnessed similar scenes of displacement during the Yugoslav wars. More recently, the conflicts in the Middle East have underscored how painfully relevant such histories still are. From 2006 to 2009, we launched a new project, the English language edition of the letters of Johann Martin Boltzius, the first pastor of the Ebenezer community. This was made possible through the Georgia Salzburger Society and the outstanding work of Professor Russell Kleckley, who has continued to support all subsequent publications. I'm deeply grateful for his collegiality and commitment. Our third joint project was the edition of letters written by Johann Ernst Bergmann, the last pastor of the immigrant congregation. Like the previous volumes, this project owes much to the unwavering support of Vince Exley. The English edition appeared in 2022 through Brill Publishers, followed by the German edition in 2024, published by the Francke Foundations. And now we present fourth volume in this series. The diary fragments of Johann Martin Boltzius from the years 1746, 57, 59 and 1763. How did this new volume come to be? While annotating the Bergmann letters, Professor Kleckley and I came into contact with Erika Preck, an expert in Salzburger's family genealogy. After her election as vice president of the GSS, alongside Nobel Boykin as president, both expressed strong interest in continuing to publish source material related to the Salzburgers in Georgia from the Francke Foundation's archives. It was Erika who suggested editing the 4 remaining Boltzius diaries, only one of which, the 1759 journal, had previously been included to George Fenwick Jones' 18-volume series. However, that earlier edition was taken from the 18th century German printed edition by Samuel Ursberger and contained omissions, redactions, and anonymized names. Therefore, we decided to include even the 1759 diary anew, based on the original manuscript, which is far more complete and candid than the printed version. With this edition, we now have all known diaries of Boltzius in published form and have effectively completed the detailed reports series that Jones once began. Let me briefly explain our method. As with the previous publications, we have also worked collaboratively in this edition. My former colleague Carsten Hommel, who already worked with the Boltzius letter edition, took on the task of transcribing the handwritten notes, originally written in German current script, you can see an example on the left side, into a machine-readable text document on the right. I have then compared this transcription with the original handwritten version. As you can see, I did it like a teacher at school. This is a task which requires nearly the same time as transcribing text for the first time, because one has to compare the text letter by letter. On average, it takes 1 hour for one page. In addition, I already added initial footnotes providing explanations for the German context. The corrected and typed version was then passed on to Russell Kleckley for translation. At the same time, he worked on annotations regarding the English context. For review and coordination, the translation was sent back to me and I examined the final English text version once more. An invaluable contribution to the annotations was made by Erika Breck, who provided biographical details on approximately 400 individuals. Unfortunately, due to space limitations, we had to restrict these details to names, birth names, years of life, spouses, and where applicable, children, occupations, the time of arrival in Georgia, and residential areas. The edition also includes a foreword by Professor Müller-Balke, a general introduction and chapter introductions by Professor Kleckley, a list of hymns referenced in the text, bilingual biographical notes on key individuals, a bibliography of sources used, including a list of books and newspapers Boltzius ordered and mentioned, and a detailed index of names, places, and subjects. For clarity, the index uses page numbers for introductions and biographies, and diary entry dates for references within the journal itself. Footnote numbers are listed in parentheses, and italics indicate notes in the English section. But what can you expect to find in these diary fragments? In Boltzius' diary entries, you will find, of course, detailed reports on his pastoral activities, which include church services, the celebration of the Eucharist, catechism lessons, numerous conversations and visits to parish members, often in cases of illness, as well as the division of labor with his colleagues Hermann Heinrich Lemke and Christian Rabenhorst. He also offers assessments of the people living in the community. However, the diary entries are more than just records of church life. They frequently contain references to economic, political, and social issues, often extending beyond the immediate events in Ebenezer. For Boltzius, local events were always embedded in the broader context of the British colony and, more widely, the developments across North America and Europe. An important aspect of his perspective was divine providence, under which Boltzius viewed all events. Ebenezer experienced its economic peak during this time. The mills were thriving, and Boltzius even conceived a bold plan for timber trade with the West Indies. Agriculture and livestock farming flourished, and with the growing population, new settlements in extensive plantations were established. The Salzburgers in Ebenezer also began cultivating silk, not only creating another source of income, but soon assuming a leading position in Georgia. Politically, We witnessed Georgia's transformation from a trustee colony to a royal colony. Boltzius repeatedly seeks to establish good relationships with the three governors who shaped the tenure. He also follows and comments on the 7 Years' War in Europe and its North American theater known as the French and Indian War. Initially, Boltzius sees the Native Americans as potential trade partners for Ebenezer, but in later years they are mostly mentioned only in the context of violent conflicts. One diary entry from 1763 contains a particularly striking remark about African slavery. After reading an anti-slavery pamphlet from Pennsylvania, Boltzius writes, "If I had read that earlier, I would have stayed with my old, well-founded opinion that the introduction and use of Negroes is sinful and therefore impermissible, and also that there would be no blessing with it, but all the more serious accountability." This is a reference to a letter by the London court preacher Friedrich Michael Ziegenhagen, written 13 years earlier, in which he virtually provides a theological justification for the introduction of slavery. If the need is there and one can find no other counsel, then let one take slaves in faith and for the purpose to lead them to Christ. Then such a deed will not be sin, but it can lead to blessing. As you can see, Boltzius contrasts Ziegenbalg's words, "will not be sin," saying the use of Negroes is sinful, and "it can lead to blessing" with "there would be no blessing." The diary entries compellingly show that Boltzius was not only the spiritual leader of the Ebenezer community, but also saw himself as an economic manager, diplomat, patron, benefactor, teacher, and educator. However, toward the end of his life, signs of political, economic, and social crisis became more pronounced, which, under his successors and especially during the American Revolution, would escalate and threaten the survival of the community. With the exception of the diary from 1759, none of the diary parts presented here have been published in printed form. There are several possible reasons for this, including the events of war, the incomplete nature of the manuscripts, and perhaps also the change in the editorial leadership of the diaries in Augsburg from Samuel Ursberger to his son Johann August. The diary from 1759, for which the original version of the entries for April and May has been preserved, offers a small glimpse into the editorial method employed by Ursberger for publication. These methods could range from omitting entire daily entries or sections with critical remarks about the colonial authorities or individual residents of Ebenezer, such as the later Governor Johann Adam Treutlin, to seemingly small changes in wording that altered the sentence structure while removing its critical content. A more detailed study of these changes would certainly be very revealing. The book is available at a reduced price in the GSS Museum, and we sincerely hope it finds many interested readers. And finally, I would like to look into the future. When I said at the beginning that the Salzburger immigrants have accompanied me throughout my entire professional life at the Francke Foundations, I can now add that there are plans for a new project that will extend into my retirement and even beyond. We have so far focused on the documents of Ebenezer's first and last pastors, but the planned edition will expand to include the letters of the pastors in between. This will comprise 100 letters from Hermann Heinrich Lemke, Christian Rabenhorst, and Christoph Friedrich Triebner, spanning the years 1745 to 1800. Almost all of these letters have never been published before. Many of Rabenhorst and Triebner's letters date from the time of the American Revolution, and the launch of the project coincides with the 250th anniversary of the American Declaration of Independence next year. For the first time, it will be possible to gain an authentic insight, especially into Triebner's perspective on the events and his role during the struggle for independence, directly from his own letters. This publication might contribute to a more nuanced assessment or even a re-evaluation of these three pastors. Once again, this edition will be produced in the proven collaboration between the Francke Foundations, the Georgia Salzburger Society and Russell Kleckley. The project is planned to span 4 years, with the book scheduled to be published by the Francke Foundations Press by the end of 2029. The GSS has kindly agreed to cover the costs of transcriptions and translations. Therefore, we would greatly appreciate your support in the form of a donation to help make this important project a reality. I look forward to working on this new joint venture, and I hope that I have provided you with some insight into our latest publication, as well as into our ongoing collaborative project with the Georgia Salzburger Society. Thank you for your interest, and I look forward to continuing this journey together.
Wonderful.